All right, here we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Political Fixer Live. I'm your host this evening, Shauna Presley Vircher, and we have a lot of ground to cover on this particular episode of Political Fixer Live. We had a bit of a fun episode last week where we were talking about strategy and messaging. We got a lot of different feedback from some of you talking about what you want to do to move things forward. Well, tonight we have a ton of ground to cover to not only talk about our strategy and how we can work together on some critical issues, because it's definitely going to take all of us, but also some news. We've got a lot of news that we're going to be covering as far as what is happening and what we can be doing right now. So, we've got a few major stories. If you are new to Political Fixer Live, you can catch us live right now. We're on TikTok and YouTube at Political Fixer Live. But we also want to make sure that you understand how you can engage, because this is definitely a program where we want to make sure that you are heard and your opinions are inserted into the program. So if you are new here, make sure that you enter your questions, your comments, and your thoughts into the chat. And our amazing Political Fixer team is going to make sure that we get to as many of those as possible. Tonight, we have Jay Robot and Sarah and Eddie on to make sure that everything goes amazing tonight for this really packed show. Okay, so much to talk about. We're going to lead off with actually, surprisingly, some positive news. We are going to start with some positive news. I don't know if you are someone that follows a lot of what's been happening with Ukraine. It is tough to follow, particularly if you are not someone like I don't have a military background. Sometimes some of these message boards and chats are a little bit difficult for me to understand what's going on. But what happened this week in Ukraine is something that I'm telling you they are going to be making movies out of. They are going to be filming Hollywood legends about what just happened in Ukraine this week. And it had impact, and some would say fallout, all the way over here as well. Okay. DJ asked, am I in Pete's signal chat too? Remarkably, DJ, they pulled all of this off without blabbing on Signal first or using emojis to carry out their plans. Okay, so it was called Operation Spiderweb. And if you haven't heard, it was extremely successful. So Operation Spiderweb took 18 months to plan. And again, let me tell you, this is the thing that Hollywood action stories are made out of. I want to kind of paint a picture for you. So, for those of you, picture Russia and how large it is. And for quite some time, Ukraine has had only a certain circle of range that they could reach with their weapons, right? Russia's gigantic, weapons only go so far until now. They were able to strike over 100 Ukrainian drones, struck air bases deep inside Russia as far as Siberia. Now, how did they do this? This is where it gets wild. So the Ukrainians smuggled in these wooden cabin looking things on the back of trucks, and sort of think of them as like little tiny houses. So they put these tiny houses on the back of these trucks, these kind of mid-sized log cabins, and basically had people deliver them to different locations saying, "Hey, these people would like these cabins or these tiny houses, set them here." Then they left. I want to say everyone got out safely for this military operation. It was amazing. Okay, so they bring in these things on trucks, these little houses, they set them down. Then on June 1st is when the operation took place. I want you to imagine this. The roofs open up on these cabins, and all of these remote controlled drones start to launch, each with its own mission. And I don't just mean hit this general airspace. I mean down to which plane are you assigned to that you, operator of drone number 123, which specific plane are you going to target and make sure that you hit? The footage that has been coming out of Ukraine and out of Russia is it's just absolutely awe-inspiring. So they got these They said 117 drones were used. It took a year and 6 months and 9 days to plan. And let me get to the impact of this. There's so much about the targets here. 41 Russian strategic bombers, the planes, were completely hit. At least 13 were destroyed beyond recognition. Now, this is a big deal for a few different reasons. First of all, it shows Russia that Ukraine can get to them inside of the house. They chose to strike military targets, but they can get to them as far as Siberia. It freaked them out. The entire next day, they were inspecting every truck in Russia that was going through major roads because they were paranoid that there would be drones or weapons on them. The other reason that it matters is that these were active bombers. These were planes that were being used to attack Ukraine. So taking out that many weapons was a huge important success for their own defense. But not only that, these particular type of bombers, Russia doesn't have the supplies to make them anymore. So this was a huge setback. They can't just go to the local airplane store and buy more airplanes. This was, I'm looking for a number for you. I want to say it was $700 million worth of damage. Now, what happened that impacts the United States? Why should you care? Well, first of all, if you've been following this, the Ukrainian story of how it's a David versus Goliath tale. It is a very small country that is standing up to a giant bully, and they have done so for years now. It is just remarkable the resilience of this country. And so anytime they get a victory, then to me that is extremely not only inspiring, but as far as what they are going through, but it gives me energy in what we are facing. They are facing literal devastation that we cannot possibly imagine. So it gives me a spring in my step when they get a win. But it also has some political and military consequences at home. The attack was definitely something that sent shockwaves through a number of people. First of all, Putin, quite surprised, but 47 and this current administration also surprised. It was proof that Ukraine no longer considers the United States a trustworthy ally. Would you tell the guy what you were about to attack? Right? Would you tell him so that he could give Russia a heads up and an advance notice? So this was definitely a line in the sand that had clearly been drawn well before now. Zelensky had to know all of this when he was sitting in that Oval Office meeting, and you had the likes of JD Vance trying to humiliate him. And meanwhile, they knew they had this operation planned the entire time. Zelensky is playing this smartly. He did not go to the United States and warn them, and man, was Putin upset. Was he upset with Zelensky? Yeah, they're at war. But he was as upset, arguably, with Trump for not knowing it was coming and not being able to warn him. In fact, Fox News, the Fox News coverage of this event was saying their host said that Trump turned out to be wrong about Ukraine not having any cards to play against Russia. It was $7 billion. Forgive me, not 700. So many aircraft worth so much money. It's easy to get confused. Over 40 aircraft that they have confirmed worth about $7 billion that again are right now irreplaceable. And it's Brit Hume, the Fox News host, said it certainly does establish that this country, whose president was being told at the White House that he didn't have any cards to play, he apparently has quite a few cards to play. Um, so he also said that it was an embarrassment and an intelligence failure and an embarrassing defense failure that we in the United States, with all of our operations, did not know. All right, stop and think about that for just a second. It's one thing to say that Zelensky and his military team did not voluntarily tell Trump, but how weak are we as an intelligence community right now when we couldn't find out on our own an operation that was going on for 18 months? And there's a reason we're weak. It's because people don't trust us because we got liars in the house, right? Now, in addition to Fox News ragging on him, there is another thing to look for in this story. So if you're not someone that follows foreign affairs a lot, I totally get it. It can be a little bit overwhelming and candidly, it can be a little bit depressing. However, The Ukrainian fight is an important one for so many different reasons. And one of the reasons here at home is look for who is rooting for whom. Who is rooting for the good guys and who's rooting for the bad guys, because that tells you a lot. I like to say this to remind everyone at home that years ago, the DNC, the Democratic National Server, was hacked by Russia. And as we all remember, leaks after leaks after leaks were put online and in publications for months and months and months at a time. But what people forget is that the Republican server was also hacked. However, those contents were not leaked. And we still to this day do not know what information Russia has on different Republicans and who is compromised. These types of things give us an indication on who is compromised and who's receiving a paycheck from bad guys. So Steve Bannon crawled out of the sewer to make his comments on this military operation. And he called for the arrest of Senator Lindsey Graham. I'm going to say that again in case you think that we're having technical difficulties. He called for the arrest of a U.S. Senator, Lindsey Graham, because he says that if he knew it was a betrayal, if he knew about the attack, Lindsey Graham was saying that it was a brilliant effort, that it was ingenious, it was ever resourceful, praising Ukraine for making progress against a common enemy in Russia. And when you look at who's angry, it tells you a lot about what side they're on. So at first, it's just really funny how some of this is mirroring over here. So Russia went through the usual exercises that you would expect our sitting 47 to go through if he was caught embarrassed and humiliated by a foe. First, they denied that it happened. Then Ukraine started leaking footage and saying, no, here's footage of us blowing up your stuff, right? And they're like, oh, but you may have, put these out there, but you didn't destroy anything important. So Ukraine started putting out footage like, here's this plane that we blew up. Here's this plane that we blew up, right? And then it was someone else's fault. In this case, it was the United States because we didn't have the intelligence to warn him. Really interesting. It's Putin and 47 are similar in many ways, but it's an uplifting story. They continue to fight. They took out, it's believed to be approximately 1/3 of the entire Russian fleet. So if you're looking for some positive news, those people have just been putting in so much sacrifice. It's nice to see them again with this kind of Hollywood style ingenious collaboration, working together, planning it. You can hear the theme music in your head when I describe what happened. um, it's amazing what they're able to do when so much is stacked against them. All right, we're going to keep going with other stories. I want to get some comments from some of you. Did you know about this Ukraine story? Do you still follow Ukraine? And what do you think about this news and what's happening with Russia, with Bannon, with the 47 and Putin's relationship? Do you think it's as strong as ever? Are they going to be besties for life? Um, Kelly Fraser says, oh, please arrest Lindsey. It's just very strange how people that can be completely your nemesis across the table on one issue, on another issue, they surprise you and you're sitting on the same side, right? Square Foot Gardening for You says, absolutely fabulous. I was military intelligence and this trip to my trigger. Oh, Squarefoot, I got to have some gossip sessions for you because you actually really understand and appreciate what all of this means. You'll have to send me your thoughts later for sure. Cynthia Fontaine, the psychic medium, said she followed it and she thinks the news is fantastic. Veronica didn't know about it. So I'm glad, Veronica, when I can bring you something especially positive that's new, that hasn't made its way into your feed. And Kathy McGrath says, I'm so happy. Kathy McGrath Walcott says, I'm so happy that they did not tell 47. You're right. There's a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of gamesmanship to be cozy and buddy up to allies and all of this stuff. But when push came to shove, he knew what to do. And we've got a lot of friends online tonight with Professor Liberty Esquire. I wanted to see Out GIF or Out GIF. You're going to restart the debate with this, aren't you? Zelensky is nobody's fool. Can't trust anyone in our current administration. That is true. I was referring to how you pronounce your your tag there. You're out GIF or are you out GIF? I'm curious to know where people stand on that. um, Lisa Prophet Davis says, ketchup just hit the wall when Zelensky pulled this off without 47 being involved. Creole American brings up a good point. I'm worried about what Putin will do after this. It is a valid point, but honestly, the guy is pure evil. If he wants to do something evil, he's going to do it and just make up an excuse. Um, I have been reading some of the more violent and heinous things that they've already been doing. And at this point in time, you have to just go for the proverbial jugular. And I think that striking far inside of their borders, but only striking military targets was also just a brilliant strategic move because it shows that you have access. It shows you can get to people, but you're not doing anything beyond the pale that Russia is doing, like bombing civilian areas and hospitals and things like that, right? Um, okay, so yeah, just ask me is saying, waiting to see if if Congress is going to withhold funding for Ukraine this time. I'm also very curious on how that is going to go. Um, Professor Liberty Esquire has a concern that we didn't know through other means, our intelligence community. It does show a weakness in our intelligence community. I guess another way to look at it, though, is man, did they keep that tight as a drum, right? I mean, there were no leaks, no one knew. And to think about that over a period of 18 months with the moving around and the planning and the technology and the maps and the equipment, it's just really, really, I don't know. It's brilliant. Okay, Lo-Fi Junkie, thoughts about tacos. We're going to talk about tacos. Actually, I'm very just ask me says also, gee, if only America hadn't cut their intelligence. Um Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for all of the likes. We're just getting started tonight. If you're just joining us on Political Fixer Live, we're at already over 15,000 likes and tons of taco emojis, which is amazing. We'll talk more about tacos shortly. Before we dive into our next story, I want to invite you all to something that is free, that is virtual. You can join us from anywhere in the world on June 14th while he is having his little parade birthday party. Then some of you will be working on different organizing events across the country with the No Kings March and things like that. And that is great. We support that. But if marching is not your style, or if there's not an event that you can attend, then we are also holding a free training that you can attend from anywhere in the world. It is on June 14th at 10 a.m. Eastern, which I know is going to make it tough on our West Coasters, and I apologize for that, but all are welcome. And if you're in the Tampa Bay area, seating is limited, but it's also free. So, how do you sign up for this free training and what's in it? Let's start with the easy stuff. Where do you go? Politicalfixer.com. And right there on the homepage, just scroll down just a little bit and you'll see free training and you can register for free and let us know if you're attending virtually, if you want to attend in person, or if you can't make this date but you want to join us for another one. What's in the training? Okay, so this is what we call our Saving America training. We're going to talk about the 7 pillars that are required to build a successful movement and actually organize effectively. This is something that I have been training on for years, but we've obviously modified it in light of everything going on right now. And so right now, if I had to summarize the 3 things that I hope you would take away from this training, it's how to turn a moment into a movement. It's basically why sometimes you say, well, this is an important issue, but it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything. Or this is a campaign that's important, but it doesn't feel like it matters, versus those movements that feel important, that sweep people in, that gain media traction, that gain the attention of more than insiders and tend to have a profound impact on something moving forward. What is the difference between a moment and a movement? And how can we make sure to turn this moment into a successful movement for positive change? That's the first thing. And there's actually ingredients to this. So we're going to talk a little bit of history, including the civil rights movement, the women's wave of second feminism. It's going to be really cool, fun, nerdy stuff, I promise. And then we're going to understand what is not working in the new age of politics. Why does it feel like Democrats aren't doing anything? Why does it feel like we're stuck in quicksand? Why does it feel like they're constantly winning, even though they're a bunch of idiots? Why is all of that happening? There's actually a reason, and there's a strategy, and there's there's things that you can do about it. No matter who you are, no matter how big your audience is, no matter what you do for a living, no matter if you're the most outgoing person in the world or super shy, there is a place for you in this movement. What is it? How do you find it? And how does it work? And really understanding the dynamics and the political strategy of what is working and what is not and why. And what I hope that will be is a section where you're like, oh, I knew this, but I just needed to understand how to phrase it. And the third thing is, I hope that you walk away with an actual blueprint, a to-do list of this is what I can do. That you feel confident, like, okay, I've got what I can do. I feel comfortable that this is what I can contribute right now, moving forward into the midterms and beyond. You find your place, that you end up walking out with an action list that works for you. All right. Just ask me. I will be on for at least until 10 p.m. Eastern. So definitely take that phone call. And for the rest of you that are asking, as far as this training, it is 100% free. The training lasts about 2 hours. We will be doing it online and in Tampa Bay. Go to politicalfixer.com. It is June 14th and it starts at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you would like to attend in person in Tampa Bay, then we will send you that location. Seating is limited, but it's first come, first serve. As long as you register, you're good. So just send us that notice. If you already registered for the virtual training and then you found out there's an opportunity to come in person, just fill it out again and tell us you're coming. No problem. We'll get you all taken care of. We're also going to make sure that if you register, we send you information, even if you can't attend this one, even if you go to politicalfixer.com and you tell us that you can't make this one, but you're interested in future trainings, we will send you social media artwork, flyers, and information where you can share this with your networks as well. And again, this is the first of many. We would like to come into your communities and do this training as much as possible. And we're going to be talking about that in the weeks and months ahead. So if you would like us to come to your area, make sure you fill out that form and let us know. And this is written on the site, but I feel like I should tell you, especially because someone is bringing up Peter Thiel here, we never, ever, ever sell your data. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we respect you, and we will hopefully get some time to talk about that Peter Thiel story. If not today, we will definitely cover it later. All right. So we led with some positive stuff, but now I've got to bring it home with a story that is not so positive. And this is our close to home story for this week. I like to take a story that really puts into perspective how things that happen in DC impact everyday people. And unfortunately, most of those stories are negative, but it's really important, especially if you or someone you know lives on the East Coast. All right, we're going to talk about weather. There's some things that you should know that have been happening. A few nights ago, an Emmy-winning weatherman, meteorologist from Miami, interrupted his broadcast. His name is John Morales, and he was giving the weather report, and suddenly the tone of his weather report shifted. He inserted a video of himself, and if you haven't seen this, I want to give you his name again so you can search for it. It's John Morales, Morales, and he's a Miami newscaster and meteorologist. He started by showing a 2019 video of one of the hurricanes, and he was calming everyone in the audience. And he said, listen, I know it looks like it's coming right for us, but I'm telling you, it's going to turn. Do not panic. It was a very scary moment. And then he goes from showing this clip of 2019 to cutting to the present. And he says, over my 34 years in South Florida, I went on TV and I told you it's not going to turn, or it's going to turn. You do not need to worry. And he says, but I'm here to tell you, I'm not sure I can do that this year. He went on to specifically, and may I add bravely, Miami's a pretty red county now, bravely say that thanks to the Department of Government Efficiency, the National Weather Service and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, that their budgets had been slashed. And because of that, that his ability, as everyone else's, to be able to reliably predict the weather, particularly named storms like hurricanes, was going to be severely impacted. He went on to give some specific statistics. He said that the South Florida Weather Service alone, just in South Florida, is between 20 to 40% understaffed. He also said that because of funding reductions, 17, nearly 20% of their budget for launching the weather balloons that test the pressure and the speed and the winds and everything of a hurricane, 17% less of them would be able to be launched. So, what this means for those of you that don't live near a hurricane state, that haven't ever had to deal with this, they go in and they measure all of these different things constantly to show you not only what the storm is doing, but to try to predict it using different patterns of wind and water temperature to tell you where it's going. When it is just a big spinning ball out there in the Gulf or out there in the ocean, it is just one big scary mass. So, how do we know that it's going to jut up and hit South Carolina or it's going to go across and skip across to New Orleans? This type of data is critical, and we are losing our ability to gather it. Now, how did we get here? And don't worry, we're going to have some action steps on what you can do, especially if you live in these areas or if you um, have family that live in these areas. So, about a month ago, on May 15th, a story was broken by the Wall Street Journal. Something leaked from one of the meetings of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that David Richardson, the acting head of FEMA, did not yet have a plan for hurricane season. He was questioned about this, and he said that he is 80 to 85% done with the plan. All right, that was back in May. He did not have a plan for the year. All right. My parents, my late father, my late grandfather, actually, and my late uncle, they all worked for, at the time, a division of FEMA called DMAT, Disaster Medical Assistance Team. They were part of this emergency planning. And this stuff takes months. You have to gather supplies. Let me give you one small, tiny example. If something comes in and wipes out power, and it wipes it out where not even backup generators are working. People need certain medications. Those medications often have to be refrigerated or at least kept at room temperature. Very difficult to do in the Southeast. So, how many refrigerated trucks do you need? Is your medicine current or has it expired from last season? Approximately how many people in what area need what medicine based on where the storm hits? If the storm hits in Tampa, you're not going to sit there and put all your supplies in Tampa. Where is a safe staging area? That's just one tiny thread of what goes into these plans. So to say in May that you do not have a plan yet is earth shattering for anyone that has any exposure to any disaster preparedness. So that was in May. It somehow got worse. We are officially in hurricane season. There is a hurricane season, and it starts here in Florida as well as the rest of the East Coast now on June 1st. Memorial Day weekend is our informal way of saying, hey, welcome to summer. Hope you got your hurricane supplies. In fact, it's so synonymous here in the South that often you'll have Memorial Day sales at Lowe's and Home Depot and other home improvement stores like, hey, happy Memorial Day, come get your generators, right? Like it's that synonymous, the hurricane season. Why do I say all of that? Because apparently, while we're very equipped to understand hurricane season, and thanks to the writing of Rex Huckpy, forgive me, Hupkey, he reminded me that there is a Jimmy Buffett song that is titled Trying to Reason with Hurricane Season. That is how well this is known. Yet the head of FEMA, Richardson, said he was unfamiliar with hurricane season. He didn't know when it started. Okay, this is not good. This remark was leaked earlier this week. Then, of course, what do you think they did? If you had to stop and think about it for 30 seconds, oh, they misunderstood. Oh, no, here was the remark. It was verified by 4 credible sources. Oh, it was just a joke. It doesn't matter. The remark is not what concerns me. What concerns me is ask him about his hurricane plan. His hurricane plan, and I'm quoting here, we're just going to do what we did in 2024. Really? Okay. Let's break that down for just a second. First of all, are you telling me after months and months and months of claiming that Biden's administration and FEMA were awful and they did nothing and he was inept and that administration and every bashing thing that they did on the campaign trail to lie to hurricane victims about the resources that they were not going to receive under Biden, that now you're using Biden's plan for FEMA? Let's start with that. Okay, so you're liars, which we knew. Number two, you're going to do the same in 2024, but you have downsized 2,000 full-time FEMA staff, a third of their staff, and slashed their budget. And in fact, they are saying that they want to eliminate the department altogether. So what can you do? Can you make them care? No. Is it like, let me give you some perspective. Again, if you have not lived here, if you are not someone that deals with hurricanes, we all deal with stuff, right? Some of you are dealing with tornadoes, some of you deal with earthquakes, some of you deal with fires. We're all dealing with something. This is just today's problem, but we are absolutely going to all be feeling the impact of not having disaster preparedness at some point. In 2024, none of the storms, by definition, were considered catastrophic because it didn't reach that threshold of loss of life. And yet, it was a record hurricane season. So we didn't have the one big Katrina. We had storm after storm after storm that lasted for days and days and weeks and weeks. And as you recall, stretched up farther into the United States, flooding areas, South Carolina, North Carolina on up. It devastated over $200 billion of damage just in Florida. Hurricane Helene, the buildings that were impacted by flooding, over 165,000 buildings were flooded. Bam, Hurricane Helene. Then comes Hurricane Milton, hits us again, 185,000 buildings impacted by flooding. Now, I actually went to get reliable data. So I went to a scientific company not based in the United States to get these numbers. And what they have to say is that it is difficult to say. They're saying this is going to be a difficult hurricane season, but hurricanes are by nature unpredictable. But climate change has now been linked definitively to increased rainfall. So even if you have a less active season, even if you have storms with less strength, they could still produce catastrophic flooding events. Now let's talk about the cleanup. So we can't warn people. We don't know where something's going. We're not going to be able to have reliable information on where these things are turning. And on top of that, when it hits, FEMA is not fully prepared to take care of things in the instant aftermath. But right down the street from my house, and we were very lucky. We were very all around us, friends and neighbors lost everything. And right down our street, because we were one of the few streets that still had power, and that we did not we it was a street that was cleared that they could get to. They had a FEMA staging area for months and months and months. They brought in these giant trucks, the largest trucks you've ever seen, with different equipment to clear debris from the streets, to clean up the trash that washes up from the ocean when it gets here, to clear the roads so that they're safe, to repair downed power lines. That stuff takes months with federal assistance. If that type of storm hits Alabama or Mississippi, those people cannot afford that cleanup. I'm telling you that right now. It's not in their budget. We are by nature a very wealthy state on paper, even though we don't act like it. We make some stupid decisions with that money, but with our tourism money, with Disney alone, we make so much money in Florida because of our beach tourism and our Disney money and all of that, that we can afford that type of cleanup, though it will be difficult. Other states without FEMA assistance, they cannot. If we don't help them, what happens, right? Um, these are some good points. Professor Liberty Esquire says, I'm terrified about how many people will die and how many real estate developers will scoop up property. So many different people. Okay, Mary brings up a really great point. In the past, there have been European models of US storms. We should find a source for that. Great suggestion, Mary. And I'm going to put that on my list to do. I also, if you are near any of these places or you have families that are near these places, here's what we're doing, give or take, right? Because the thing is, these storms can pop up in just a moment's notice. So What my family, especially because my parents worked in disaster recovery, so we knew close up how bad things could get. One other thing with climate change, we talked about the flooding, but what we did not talk about is how quickly the storms grow. That is also a relatively new thing, having to do with climate change. I'm just going to adjust my phone here because it's overheating, guys. Sorry, TikTokers. All right. So, why do I bring this up? Because a lot of times you'll have a storm that's a two, a two, a two, and then whack, it's a four. We have started having a savings account, essentially, or like money that we stash aside and earmark in the summer for what we call hurricanes. So let me tell you what we do. If we're going to spend the money anyway, we have identified a few different places that are moderately priced that allow us to bring our pets, that have reliable Wi-Fi where we're out of the path of whatever might come, depending on if it's going, east or west or what have you. We have a couple of backup plans, and if we feel like this thing is even coming close to getting dangerous, we're like, you know what? It's time for a hurricane. And we try to make something positive out of it. We try to go into an area where it's not so panicked. We make sure that we have supplies on hand. And it takes something that's a really tough situation. And it's like, at least if we're going to spend the money, let's go somewhere that is at least like clean and fun and safe for kids or pets or whatever the case is. Get used to the idea that evacuation might become the normal. The other thing is make sure that you have all of your supplies, like your papers and things like that, on the ready in a box, in a go box. What is your supply list? What is your go bag? Where's the things that you need? Have them ready to go, because if things start to heat up, so to speak, you're going to want to make the decision to leave before everybody starts to panic. We won't be able to predict things as easily, which means that panic is more likely. And there is something to be said for that kind of barometric pressure where people start to get a little zany kind of thing. The other thing you can do, I love Mary's suggestion. Let's look for alternate sources of data. And then if you can, if you live somewhere that's in an area nearish to a hurricane area, let's say that you live in the inner parts of Georgia, or you live, somewhere in like, Virginia or Washington, D.C., that seems like it's safe and you have friends there, let them know if it's okay for them to stay with you, and if push came to shove for a weekend or something while a storm passes. That's something that you can do. Also, be on the lookout for the different funds that are reliable for supplies after the storm passes in whatever areas it's inevitably going to hit, because places like Red Cross and other locations are going to need supplies this year more than ever, because it all trickles down. Funding slashed here means that everyone's going to need more of everything. So we'll keep you posted on that. Square Foot Gardening also has a great point. Keep digital copies of all of your documents. Kimberly also, she says it is hard to leave from South Florida. Agreed. Absolutely. But maybe you could leave in pieces, right? Like, maybe it's not like flee all the way up to North Carolina, but it's like, you know what, let's pack up and go across to Tampa or Naples for a couple of days. Is there an intermediary thing that you could do that would be inconvenient but not break the bank, that could be your little hurricane? Like, you know what, we're just going to get out and go here. If it gets worse, we'll go up further, right? What does that look like for your family? So, sorry to bring bad news, but with hurricane season starting, I think it's really important that we find out what is happening with all this government funding and how it affects us. And as you have other story ideas for how real ways that federal funding is impacting or going to impact everyday people, please send them to us. Send them to Political Fixer. Send us story ideas. Let me express to you that we are going to be taking a lot of a more assertive approach on our content over the next several months, particularly leading into midterms. And one of the things that I firmly believe, there's two I'm going to share with you right now. One is that when we look at the 2024 presidential election, it was really not Republicans versus Democrats and who won. If you were going to name something that won the most votes, it was people who chose not to vote at all. People do not understand how all of this works. They do not believe that it matters who's in charge. They've been made to feel like government never can work for them, or that what they do will never make a difference. We have to get to work to change that. So things like this, content like this, that shows like that something that someone in a desk in Washington, D.C. says can impact their families becomes really important as we're trying to reach those persuadable voters who are trying to convince themselves to vote at all, right? This is really important, right? Um, the second thing to keep in mind is it's not just there's more of us than there are of them, like good guys versus bad guys. It's not just that. Media wise, our voices are so much more powerful. I don't know if any of you followed the debacle, thankfully, that was Jake Tapper's book, the slam book against our former president, saying, oh, he was addled, he had no business being in there, it was this great cover up, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that book only sold about 50,000 copies. And for contrast, the story that was talking about the cover up with Trump in the White House that was written by one of the generals sold over 1 million copies. Okay. So his book didn't sell. His ratings are in the tank. And when you look at what's happening with CNN, we collectively get more ratings and viewers with you all on our political fixer channels than CNN does. All right. And think about all of us working together. We can overpower legacy media. So while they're just playing games and trying to set up things for ratings, we can get real information out to real people. And so this is going to be super important as we move forward. Someone asked me what Jake Tapper's advance money was. I don't know, but you know what? I'm sure he got paid a lot, but his ego is nice and bruised, which I am enjoying seeing, right? Veronica saying shouldn't even watch mainstream media anymore. I watch the clips because of my job, but it is hard to stomach. It is very difficult to do. So my point is this: when we move forward and we're trying to change things, we no longer need to beg these news outlets to cover things on a national level. We can get the word out. And so stories like this, learning how to say things in a way that makes sense, that impacts people, that's not all, bickering or bills that don't make sense. That's like how that's going to impact their family, their businesses, their homes. This is the communication we need to start having as a family with as many people as possible. And part of the trainings that we're offering, if you're just joining us, again, completely free. This is our mission. This is what we're going to do. Part of this is going to be training, part of it's going to be messaging, part of it's going to be creating resources for you to share. This is what we're doing. So with this, as you have ideas, we would love to hear from you. And as you find good content, we would like to amplify it. So we definitely want to make sure. So CJ Murphy says, with the cuts to NOAA and the National Weather Service, it's going to get much worse. I have friends that work for the National Weather Service and they are very worried. Not good when the people on the inside are saying, no, you should be concerned. That's not what you want to hear. You want to hear your friend go out to lunch like, oh no, the media is exaggerating. They're just, you know how they are. But when the friend goes out to lunch with you and is like, no, girl, we're in trouble, then it's a little bit unsettling with this. NZ, is it GZ? I want to make sure that I pronounce your name. Says, appreciate you watching the mainstream media for us. I it's an addiction at this point. I don't know if I'm a masochist or what. I do try to catch some different people that I really value and trust, but only on small things. Okay, Gwendolyn Knight says, do I think the Democrats will have a blue wave in the midterms? And the answer is hell yeah. Why? Because we're going to make it so. That's it. Do I think that the Democratic Party is going to get its act together and figure out everything? It is a large machine. It is very corporatized. There's a big bureaucracy there. As we would say in Texas, bless their hearts, right? I think they're trying. I genuinely think they're starting to try. I even saw my Congresswoman, Kathy Castor, on something talking about immigration. I'm like, oh, she speaks. She comes out. Okay. She's actually swinging and not just like naming another library monument or something. So I've seen them wake up. However, it's not enough. They're not equipped for this moment. This is not what they were built for. So some of them will surprise us in amazing ways. Some of them will disappoint us. Do I think that they are going to make an impact? Yes. Who do I think will make the most impact? Us. I think we're going to make the most impact. We can reach more people. We have our pulse on the ground as to what people are actually saying and doing. We're the ones that put in all the works with these campaigns anyway. I think we've just got to do a better job of organizing ourselves and each other and supporting each other and not just depending on the party to tell us what to do. So, yes, volunteer for campaigns, still get plugged into your county party if that's your flavor or not. But I wouldn't count on that to save us, right? Gwendolyn brings up a great point. They need younger people. Absolutely. Carol says Dems need to stop going along to get along. Yes. Again, this is things that we are seeing that over time, do I think they'll start to get it? Yeah, I do. Over time, some of them will never get it. I've been in the room with many of these people. I have worked in politics for decades. I have passed many bills, and the amount of walls that I have just wanted to bang my head against after some of these meetings, some of them, I'm telling you, again, bless your hearts, they're not going to get it. But I don't need them to. I just need them to follow the crowd, and we're the crowd. That's what I need. And so we need to be the leaders. That's the uncomfortable truth that we're all going to have to get familiar with. And so, on that note, like anything I can do to help with that, I'm here. I want to hear what all of you are working on. And before we get into our big story that I think is going to get you all is really fired up, let's see here. We've got a little bit of business to take care of. First of all, we've got Veronica sending so many gifts. Thank you so much. Stephanie, Vivian, April Freebird, Dennis Cook. Thank you so much. The gifts are hard for me to see, but the team does see you. And our top gifters, I am going to log on and follow all of our top gifters, as many of them as many of you as it will let me see on TikTok. I will follow you after the show. It takes about a day for those to show up. So look for that. It's so fun, by the way, for me to do that because with the top gifters, we had to stop for a little while because TikTok had a glitch, but we're able to do it again now, I think. But it's so fun because I'll wait for the top gifters to list out. It takes like a day for it to give me that report, and I'll follow you. And so many of you are like, is this really you or is this spam? Is this a fake account? It's really me. I follow our top gifters. I want to hear from you sincerely. So this is a great way that I can see who you are. We've got over 51,000 likes. And I think, again, this next story is definitely going to get you guys going with the conversation. But I want to offer you something else fun that you can do. We try to intersperse the depressing with the positive. Thank you, Permom. Thank you so much. I'm assuming that you have some kitties and that's why you're Permom. If you have not yet gotten involved in Equal Rights Now, the politics is tough. It is extremely tough. So this is the yin to my yang. This is my positive activism to go with my fierce warrior side. This was inspired by my daughter, who is in college right now, and asked me after the 2024 election, why do I have to wait for election results to learn how many rights I have? And as a mother, oh, that one hurt, right? And then I also, every time I tell this story, I have to credit our chief of staff, Sarah, who you guys know because she's on here every week with us. Sarah was like, think bigger. I was like, could we rally this? Could we try to get another woman elected? This is right after the loss, right? And we're all drying tears still. And Sarah's like, you're the fixer. Think bigger. Think the Constitution. And she was right. So we have started a political, a PAC, a super PAC. We do everything big. Again, I'm from Texas. So a super PAC called Equal Rights Now. Now, we started talking about this when we first launched, and then it took a life of its own, and we had to catch up to its growth. And that is thanks to all of you. We had thousands of volunteers, tons of suggestions, and we met with a number of legislators, state legislators, as well as federal legislators and local officials. And we took a step and said, how do we actually pass an amendment that makes women equal in the eyes of the Constitution? Really excited about that. So you're going to be able to go to equalrightsnow.us. That's equalrightsnow.us. 100% free. You can go on there if you want to donate. We love you for it, but you don't have to. We would love for you to sign the petition that says you believe in equal rights for women. It only asks for one piece of information, which is your zip code. And we only use that so we could reach out to your legislators and say this many people would like equal rights in your district. And then you have the option. Would you like to share a quote about why equal rights for women is important to you? And yes, allies. It's not just women and girls. We want to hear from you as well. We want everyone involved in this. And if you go online and sign up the petition or sign the contact form and say you want to get involved between then this week, one of the fun things we're doing is we have a number of badges. I'm going to show you one of them, but we have a whole library of fun new graphics and badges, and all of this is 100% free. This one says, I support equal rights for women. This badge and so many other graphics are going to be free for you to share on social, to post on your website. We also have everything says we support as well. So if you want to do it for your local organization or club or your business, then you can show everyone that you support women. We have a lot of other fun things. This is just our first teaser, but if you sign up, again, 100% free, we do not sell your data, but help us on this quest for equal rights for women. There's also a free training you can take at any time. It's an electronic training you can take for free to tell you how we got here. How is it 2025 and women don't have equal rights? And what is our specific plan to get there? And if you want me to come do that training in your area or host a virtual training, let us know. We would love to do that. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. That is the sunshine to my storm cloud. We're definitely going to try to make a positive impact as we also fight evil on a regular basis. Okay. T-shirts. Yes, Gwendolyn, absolutely. In fact, I've got some fun things, not just t-shirts, but I've got some other fun surprises for you. I'm hoping that we have it ready by next week, but don't hold me to that. But you guys are going to have so much fun. And I don't know if Marlene is on here tonight, but Marlene is one of our regular political fixer guests, and she's like, will you please do v-neck t-shirts for some of us that the others are uncomfortable? Yes, we absolutely will. So we'll have a variety of things for people and some really fun surprises as well. But yeah, we've been working on this frantically behind the scenes for months now, and we're so excited because we're days away from so many things going live. All right. I actually think that this story is half positive, half negative. Negative in the fact of, well, look around. We're sitting in the middle of the apocalypse in some ways, but also there's some positive here. Our story, our last story of the evening, our big story of the evening that I definitely want you to weigh in on is called Big Beautiful Chaos. Um, Cynthia joined us on YouTube because apparently she's quite popular and people had the nerve to ask her to use her cell phone for phone calls. Cynthia, what is wrong? XXL t-shirts, yes, they will go all the way up in some cases to 3X, in some cases to 5X based on the supplier. And all of our suppliers are American suppliers. So super excited about this. Yeah. Okay, so let's dive into our next story here. Big beautiful chaos. We've been following this giant bill that they're saying is a budget bill, but it's not. They are shoving all kinds of garbage into the bill. I could be here all night listing how many terrifying things are in this bill that has passed the House and is now on the way to the Senate. But what I'd like to focus on tonight, I do think it's important for you to see what's in it. I think it's an important story. However, it's an infuriating one. So if you haven't been following it, I don't blame you. But where are we now and what has happened recently? So it has passed the House, but now the Senate has a chance to what they call reconcile it, make their version of changes. And at first, everybody kind of thought the Senate would rubber stamp it like the House did. Aha, not so fast. The pushback on this has been tremendous. So well done to all of you. I know that sometimes it feels like you're screaming at clouds, but what you're doing is working and it's working across the country. Let me give you a few key examples of some things that are happening right now. What seems to be happening, and I'm not trying to be cute with this, but it is interesting to see. It seems like certain people in Congress are waking up to the idea that, wait, we have to get reelected. He doesn't, right? I mean, I know that they're floating nonsense about third term, whatever. Forget all that noise, right? For all intents and purposes, he is termed out. He has run his last election unless something dramatic changes. They haven't. And it suddenly is now occurring to them. Now, we talked a lot about hurricane season. Let me explain to you that in the political business, elections have a season as well. And now that we're in summer and we're talking about budgets and we're heading into fall before the midterms may feel like forever to all of us. But in political terms, people are already hiring campaign staff. They're already starting to get to work. They're seeing who's going to have a primary, which districts are up for grabs. They're already starting that work, and it's going to hit full speed early this fall. So as we get into summer, some of these Congress people are like, "Oh, holy moly, I've actually got to keep my job." And it's freaking them out. Okay, let me give you some examples. In Nebraska, that's right, I said Nebraska. In Nebraska, Representative Congressman Mike Flood had a town hall. First of all, good for him for actually showing up. That's more than most people do, but I don't think he's going to be doing it a second time. So he had this town hall and he was asked by a constituent a very specific question. I saw the tape. If you haven't seen it, it's very moving. Um, the voter in the audience asked him about a provision in this bill that allows federal judges to be restricted where they can no longer hold government officials in contempt if they violate a court order. So in plain English speak, what that means is if they pass this into law, then essentially judges cannot stop you if you're in elected office. And if they say stop what you're doing, it's illegal, they can basically say make me, which is what's happening right now with 47 in the Supreme Court. Now, imagine that times every elected at a federal level, and it doesn't even specify federal. Imagine all of these guys thinking that they're above the law. Okay. As bad as it is now, it could get worse. Okay. So she asked this question, and here's where it gets really interesting. Um, he said, this representative in Congress, Republican, Nebraska, said the language was unknown to him when he voted for the bill, that he's not in favor of it, and that he did not agree with the section that was added. And he said, he's taken the rule of law seriously. This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill. All right. So now he's saying that the Senate should strike it and that he wouldn't vote for that again. Okay. Why does this matter? Because a Republican likely safe seat in Nebraska just got caught with some really stuff that passed his red line. We could argue that the red line should have been way sooner. How could he stomach slashing Medicaid, for example? We could have that conversation. But they're starting to see that there is a red line that they're not willing to cross, and they're starting to distance themselves from it. That is what we call a fracture, right? This is good. When you have a party like this in power that is trying to just hold on to us with fear and oppression, you want them fractured. You want them to take a step back. It wasn't just him. One of the worst, Marjorie Taylor Greene, also backed off of this bill. This woman does not back off of anything. She has no manners, no shame. We have seen some of the most outrageous things. She prides herself on it. She has built her brand on being a nasty human. And yet, a red line was crossed for her, a different red line. What was it? There was language in this bill, and again, terrifying, but let's focus on the positive for just a second. It is a section buried on pages 278 and 279 that says that the federal government will be stripped of the right to make laws or to regulate AI, artificial intelligence, for 10 years. Man, their lobby is good, right? Like, imagine just being able to slide that into a bill. Like, oh, by the way, you can't do anything to us for 10 years. I know this technology is new, dangerous, and we don't even know what it's capable of, but you can't touch us for 10 years. Who paid whom for that provision, right? Well, apparently, this was a red line for Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said, full transparency, I did not know about this section on pages 278 and 279 of the bill that strips states of the right to make laws or regulate AI for 10 years. I am adamantly opposed to this. It is a violation of states' rights, and I would have voted no if I had known it was there. Am I letting her off the hook? No, absolutely not. There's no excuse. you know what? If you slowed down the process and didn't hold hearings at 1 in the morning so that America doesn't know what's in the bill, if you weren't so happy to just kiss the butt of 47 instead of doing your jobs and actually putting on some guardrails, you wouldn't be in this position. So I'm not saying we should feel sorry for them. What I want to show you is from a strategy perspective. What this means is there are things that even they can't swallow. Now, we could say it's for moral reasons. We could say it's through ideology. We could say it's because they're scared of what's going to happen to them with their donors or their constituents. It doesn't really matter the why. What matters is they're starting to break up. The band is starting to get antsy, and I don't think they're going to make it, kids. Right? CJ rightfully pointed out that Representative Swalwell had some choice words that says to not let her off the hook. She has one effing job or one job to read the effing bill, and that is true. Again, not letting her off the hook, but showing you that even now, at the height of their power, while they are taking raw milk shots in the Oval and cheering and high-fiving in front of tanks while they terrorize immigrant families, even now at the height of their power, they are still fighting and cannot get anything done. And this is really great. A couple more. Stay with me here. Elon Musk. It would not be a day of talking about dysfunction if we did not bring up Elon Musk. So, really quickly, I don't believe he's left Doge. I think he just wants people to stop being mean to him online. So let's just be very clear about that. How do I know? Because he says he's leaving. Then the very next day, there's a meeting with the guy from South Africa, and who's standing in the office with him? Elon Musk. Why are you always in the Oval Office? If you're one of my favorite sayings, this is not an airport. You do not have to announce your departure. Just leave, dude. Just leave. But he's not going anywhere. He just doesn't want everybody being mean to him. Anyway, so he said that this bill is a quote disgusting abomination. And if anyone should know what a disgusting abomination is, it would be Elon Musk. But he said, I'm sorry, I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on you who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. He said there was something about the debt. It will massively increase the already gigantic budget deficit to $2.5 trillion. And we know he was serious because he used three exclamation points and burden American citizens with crushingly unsustainable debt. Congress is making America bankrupt. I want that on a shirt. Congress is making America bankrupt. Elon Musk. Sarah, make a note of that. Anyway, who wants that? Okay, so even he is like, what are you doing? You're going to bankrupt us all. You've got the treasury that's changing rates. I mean, there's so many different things happening saying, Congress, what are you doing? Not everyone is taking things in a way that is graceful. Not all of them are saying, you know what, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done it. Some of them are doubling down. Now, Ali's son says he doesn't care about Americans, meaning Elon Musk. He's concerned about himself only. Yes, he doesn't want the economy to crash. I agree. It's completely 100% selfishly motivated. But the fact that even he is saying, like, listen, I know I'm supposed to just smile and nod around here, but I can't do that. That is a good sign that they're crossing a red line. Right. And we're going to talk in just a minute about what to do with that, like what to do with that opportunity. Right. So, okay. So if you're just joining us, we're talking about big, beautiful chaos. What's happening with the kind of ramifications of them arguing about this bill? So Cynthia Fontaine says this is better than going to the movies. I agree. Politics is a soap opera. That's what we got to get to people. Like, get involved, get engaged. Sure, it's traumatizing and I have mental health issues, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's very entertaining. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more and then we're going to dive into some conversation. Not everyone is backing off. Some people, when cornered, double down, and we've all met those people. Let me introduce you to, how can she